so doing more with less. This is obviously very, necessary at a time where fundings for humanitarian operations are decreasing. And so we are kind of being forced, with the whole like humanitarian reset and to change kind of the way of doing things. And I think doing more with less is absolutely necessary. And I think technology is kind of a way to enable us to do that. Rafa, if you could go please to the next slide. So I'm just going to kind of talk you through briefly the agenda for today. So first, we're going to talk about the truth about digital transformation. Then we're going to talk about the future of SaaS and vibe coding and what does it really mean. So kind of discussing all the benefits of AI. And then the third point will be, is AI really awesome? So kind of all the negative things that also come with using AI. But then really kind of tie it back into like, what does it mean for humanitarian work and your operations? And then last but not least, we'll have a strong focus on data protection and data protection in the context of humanitarian work. And then we'll have some space for Q&A. But first, maybe a little bit about who we are. So we are Relief Applications. For those of us that don't know us, we've done over 150 projects in innovation. So anything ranging from digital transformation, data and information management projects. We've done a lot of like mobile and web development applications, some AI and privacy tools as well. This is something we've done a lot of recently. And then we also do some monitoring evaluation and research on different topics as well. So we really work at the intersection between the humanitarian sector and technology. And our goal as an organization is to really help other organizations that are working on the ground to be more efficient with their operations so that you can deliver help faster, in a more organized manner, and just overall more efficient, as I said. So we've worked a lot with different UN entities and a lot of like the Red Cross movements as well, just to give like a few examples. And then next slide, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about who I am, and then I will leave the floor to Rafa. So my name is Luna. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Relief Applications, and I've managed a lot of projects surrounding digital transformation as well. I have a master's in humanitarian engineering, and I'm specialized in data management. And yeah, so that's it from me. And Rafa, please introduce yourself now.
Yes, thanks, Luna. I think your profile picture is much nicer than mine. I'm Raphael. I'm one of the co-founder, the CEO of Relief Applications that we created like 13 years ago. Before that, I was working in the field in humanitarian response and disaster preparedness with the UN and the Red Cross. I think I responded to something like 20 or 25 emergencies worldwide during this period. I have a technical background, so it's moving so fast that I had to retrain myself. So 2 years ago, I redid a master in engineering in the French university, specialized on AI. And also I went to the US to see the difference of AI. And it was really interesting to see like the mathematical point of view, but also the business point of view from the US way of working with AI. And in Relief Application, we really are trying to transform ourselves in the last 3 years. Working more and more with AI and automation because we were really a big adept of no-code for many, many years, helping organizations transform themselves. And we realized, and we will discuss the code, that more and more no-code application is becoming less and less relevant with the hype of AI. And to tell you the truth, the call today, the discussion is called, it was called no-code. No-code AI for humanitarians. When we submitted this call to HNPW, no-code was still very much a tool we believe in, a way of working we believe in. And with the recent development of AI in the last 3 months, no-code is losing more and more relevance, and AI vibe coding is taking more and more relevance. So we try to touch on that. And I think I wanted to take this example just for as a first example to show that what you think you know from 8 months ago, I think, or we submitted to HNPW this topic like 8 or 9 months ago, is not relevant anymore or less relevant 9 months, because now the rhythm of change is extremely fast in the IT world. So I think it's what we try to touch on today to try to stay abreast with the latest changing in AI and no-code solutions. First, I think well, we want to make like a quick survey on the truth about digital transformation, and we do that in Relief application for the last 13 years. But just for show of hand, how many of you know in your organization a software or platform that has been purchased or developed and that is not used today within your organization, not really used or not responding to the need? Can you just raise your hand? Yeah, I see some hands be raised. And I think this is like what we really notice in Relief applications, that especially in the humanitarian system, we are big consumers of systems, of new systems. But very often, these systems are not widely used in the organization, and it's extremely difficult for the organization to sometimes impose a new system. We have seen terrible example, for example, with organization trying to impose to the staff working with, I don't know, Salesforce, which is known not to have a great user experience. And for many, many years in the humanitarian sector and development sector that we work on exclusively, we notice that we have this tendency of trying to go for systems, but then when we try to develop them, deploy them in production, so really to be used within the organization, is extremely difficult, and you have a strong resistance within the organization. So we worked a lot on behavioral change. Sorry, the tongue twister for a French speaker. But I think one of the findings that we all know is like any new system never responds 100% to specific user needs. And how many times I've heard in calls trying to understand why a system was not widely adopted within a country office, within a department, or at the organization level, where people were saying, oh yes, this system doesn't really work for me because of the specificity of my program, because of the specificity of my country, or because of the specificity of the crisis I'm responding to. And I think this truth was a big issue in digital transformation for many, many years. But now, and we see it with a new way of developing and the new, I would say, scale and time frame, we can generate a system and adapt it to specific user needs, to specific country needs. The digital transformation is becoming less and less complicated, I would say, and we are moving in a new world. And this new world is really geared around AI. And I found this survey very interesting. It was done by the Humanitarian Leadership Academy last year. Like 93% of aid workers are today working with AI. So we can see that at individual level, as humanitarian development worker, we use AI. And it's true, we use AI everywhere. Who hasn't used a Copilot or ChatGPT, or even in WhatsApp, you have AI generation in WhatsApp. So we use AI all the day, and we use it to communicate, to help us write email, to sometimes analyze our data. So AI is extremely widely spread now in our daily life. But at the same time, AI is not always used in the systematic way. And we'll touch on that, on all the risks we open with this new use of AI, where you have a tool that is extremely powerful, but we have very little control on the data we use, on how it is, how the data is managed within the system, and our mandate as humanitarian workers. So later in the discussion, we'll discuss about the risk of using this AI in our daily life, but not using it in a systematic and controlled way, and what it means for the beneficiary we try to serve. And lastly, on the three first point, I really wanted to take look back on what I was saying for the SaaS. So for those who don't know what is a SaaS means software as a service. So basically, when you go and you use Notion or any like a Canva or these type of tools for project management, for example, for data analysis like a Power BI for dashboarding, Tableau, all of that are called SaaS, so software as a service. So basically, it's a software that you will just pay a license by the person, by the seat, as we say, by a user or by a monthly fee, and you will use on daily work. And as a CEO of Microsoft, and please don't take me wrong, I'm not a big supporter of Microsoft, but I think it's really important to listen to what they say, because today Microsoft and the few big tech giants are also shaping the way we work as humanitarians, so it's always interesting to listen to what they say. And this old model of SaaS is dying. Obviously, Satya Nadella wants to be a bit more impactful, so say SaaS is dead, but it's kind of true. The old way of working the humanitarian sector and buying a software and adapting ourselves to the software we are buying and learning how to use this software is less and less relevant, because today, in the new world of AI coding, we can really create software that respond to our need, and we don't have to adapt ourselves to the software, but the software will adapt to us. And so we have a real paradigm shift today, and of this old way of thinking, like let's analyze our need, try to see what exists in the market, buy a software, and then adapt our workflow as humanitarian workers to the platform we are purchasing. How many organizations I've seen like just adapting the way they work because just the admin or finance system work in a way that is not really compatible with the way of working. And it's the same when we also develop from scratch software at the organization level. At the individual or project manager level, we have to adapt the way of working with this organization-wide software. So we are really changing the paradigm to a new way of actually the product adapt to the user. So the software, the system adapt to the user. And now it's so fast to develop with AI that we can really adapt a solution to each and every specific needs. So we don't have to have a solution that fits all the needs because it doesn't exist, and we know it in our hearts. Nothing will ever encompass the user of all needs, but to a solution that is tailored to the needs of every individual using the solution. This is a change that is happening. So we are not there 100% yet. I would say it's 90%, but this is a change that is happening. And we are moving from a world where we are using like pre-made software and we were adapting to them, to a world where when we have a need, we can, in a matter sometimes of weeks or sometimes even days for simple matters, we can create a solution, an IT system, a software that responds to our specific need as project manager, as logistic officer, as really like professional. So now the development is not the limitation anymore, but the software should serve the use of the user. And what is becoming important is not the software, but the understanding of the business needs. So that is what is vibe coding, and I put these figures here, which are interesting because these figures are from 2025, and I can tell you, working in the IT world, that even these figures from 2025 are not true anymore. Like for example, there was this research from GitHub. So for the non-technical people, GitHub is like the main repository worldwide of all code. I think you should have. Every developer will know GitHub because this is a main tool. And they made this research saying like coding with AI makes the IT development 55% faster. And this study was done last year. Today, with the new generation of AI model, for example, that Anthropic, for those who know, is pushing, code is even faster. We can develop a full website in a matter of days. And this is where we are. We are in a new era of software where actually what is important is the capacity to exactly understand the need. So in plain language, so you have this very nice code to say, describe your need in plain language, and AI will generate the code. And this is how it's working. We can explain in plain language, like in plain English and plain French, what we need. And then the code will be generated. So say, oh, I need a dashboard that will show that and that and that. And the AI can generate it. Obviously, I want to put like some limitation to that. If you don't have nice data, structured data, your dashboard will not display anything. So it doesn't remove the importance of understanding the flow and the data flow within your organization. But what I really want to stress out in this discussion, that now with AI is extremely quick to go from a business process, a work that you do, for example, a logistic pipeline that you are doing, and to go from that to a system that will replicate that. I wanted to take an example because there is this big hype on AI, and I want to take this example of Klarna. So it's from the private sector, but I think it's the private sector is moving much faster than we are in AI integration into their business. So I wanted to take this example quickly of Klarna, which is a financial provider. And basically, they made the AI bet to remove their customer service agent and to replace them with an AI chatbot. And then the next year, they said, oh, okay, we need to replace every system we had with AI solution that we'll build ourselves. So stop paying licenses for Power BI, for Tableau, for Notion, for whatnot. Stop paying these licenses and let's redevelop the solution ourselves. And basically what they realized is, so you see two ways of approaching AI. One was to remove the human, the other one was to replace systems they had. And actually they realized that the second one was working very well. They save a lot of money, just stop paying licenses to companies and developing the system that fits the needs. But what they realized also, that by removing the human that were in contact with their customer, actually they were losing a lot of momentum. And they realized they needed to rehire a lot of people, to increase their customer satisfaction. So this is from the private sector, and obviously, but as humanitarian worker and development worker, we work with beneficiary, and we need to be in contact of beneficiaries. So the point is not to replace humanitarian development worker, because we know how to do the work, we know this the in and out, and we can take decision. But is to look at this example and to understand that we can save massive amount of money just by stopping paying licenses for software that do not really exactly respond to our needs. And I can tell you, in humanitarian organizations, sometimes we will pay like millions of dollars to companies, US-based companies, just on licenses per month, while we can in fact just redevelop software that will even be closer to our need for margin of the total cost. But AI is AI real awesome, and I put this as a French. I'm not really using this awesome word a lot, but we wanted to make it as a joke when we are discussing with the team on this presentation. And yes, AI has a lot of pros and cons, and I will try to paint quickly in this code because it's only like a 35-40 minute discussion. So I will try to give a quick overview. But as we know, there is an operational ability, and crises are complex. And here I'm just opening an open door. Huh? Crises are unstable and fragmented and time sensitive. We all know that, and we have, I guess, many of you in the call have been to the field. And we face a lot of constraints, like for example, on local connectivity, on paper base, on rapid staff turnover. And all these things were extremely difficult to manage, like developing a low connectivity mobile application was complicated for many years. So for example, I'm sure any of you who have ever tried to open like a Power BI dashboard in the field with connectivity hated Microsoft for a few seconds. Today with AI, you have much faster ways of dealing with these problems. Like low connectivity, you don't have to use this very heavy Microsoft dashboard. You can just develop your own dashboard that is actually tailored for low connectivity. Or for the information overload, you can much faster tailor the information to the user, and you don't have to try to have an information workflow that works for every user, because you can tailor your system for specific user. So here on the operational reality with AI, because you shift this paradigm from a system that works for everybody to a system that works for specific users, you have ways to kind of mitigate these constraints in the field. And I can give example if you want later and if you have questions on that. But something we really need to understand on AI, and I think this is on the discussion in the news every day, so I'm sure you've seen it, but AI is extremely political. Data is power, as we know, and we know that from since the start of the Google era, right? Google met its power and now is one of the biggest valuation in the world, and just on data. And they now have more money than most of the states we work in. But when we work with AI, and this is really something we have to think about, and we don't think about a lot enough, I think, is when you work with AI, is at the end who owns the data, and it's not the answer is not as simple as you think. And it's really important because the data is our beneficiaries. Sometimes you have a beneficiary, for example, with a HIV database, and this data might not be owned by you when you start working with AI, when you start working with some of the providers. So it's something extremely important to understand. And also, I will move quickly to who is excluded from this kind of revolution that is ongoing. And we need to think about that as humanitarian worker, a development worker, because we have a very fast-paced change that is happening, but many people are excluding from that. And how do we do in our mandate to make sure we bring as many people as we can and we don't forget anybody in this revolution? And Luna will discuss about the work we do on data protection and data privacy. We have a project called Data Protection for Good, because we believe one of the main risks today of AI in the humanitarian development sector is the exclusion of marginalized groups, but it's also everything that is related to data protection, because we have data flying around everywhere. Email that I've drafted with AI that speaks about a beneficiary. I worked very recently in an organization, for an organization, and we're trying to think on the data protection for child protection program, and it's a big issue. How do you make sure that everything you do doesn't harm the people you serve? That's from the data point of view, because the data now it's ingested in system and will be here forever. So it's really something, there is a big reality that we have kind of a wake-up call. But also, and I started discussing about it, AI has a lot of blind spots. And we know them, research is very clear about it. And I always make the joke of the watch. I don't know if some of you know the watch issue of AI. If you type on Google and you type for watch, you will see that all the watch will show 10 minutes past 10. Why? Because it displays better. And AI has been trained on that, okay? So if you ask AI to make a watch, you can go on your Gemini, Banana, or ChatGPT, ask them to generate a watch for you. They will generate a watch who will show 10 minutes after 10. It's a very well-known case. Obviously, now they try to work on that because it's well-known. It's exactly the same that at the beginning of AI was impossible to make a cat at night, just because there is no cat at night picture almost on the web, so they were not trained on these images. And now he tried to understand that from the point of view of marginalized population. There is very little data on the web about marginalized group, because they don't produce data, and AI is purely trained on data that is on the web. And we know, and we have statistics on that, data was mainly created in the past 20 years in the US, Europe, and China. So these are, and Southeast Asia for some reason. So these are the big chunk of data we have. So all the AI is trained on this data. So you will ask any questions, they will reproduce what they're trained for. But what about the marginalized people we work with? The AI was not trained on this data. And these people might just be excluded from any AI thinking, just because AI doesn't really integrate them in their thinking, and they were not integrated in the training. And it's the same if you look at marginalized groups, but also if you look at languages. AI is mainly trained on English, to some extent Spanish, French, Chinese, but it's still as of today, very weak in major languages like Swahili and Arabic. So imagine for some dialect where AI will not be able to understand it. But what happens if you do your interview with your groups in these languages, you inject that in an AI system, what would be the result, right? So there are many blind spots here in AI, and also Luna will touch on how do we take that into account. My role today is not to scare you, but also is kind of to put what is the reality so we don't get carried away. AI can do everything. AI can do a lot, can really tailor program to ourselves and software, but we have to be aware of the major gap. And one of the major gap is also the organizational blind spot. It's going so quickly that everybody is developing, is working with AI, using their ChatGPT, using their Copilot, using their WhatsApp even to translate messages or Word. And for organization, it's extremely difficult to follow the pace. I remember working with dear friend in the UN organization working in cybersecurity. And shadow AI has been a problem. We know for the last 20 years, people using their own system. But today with AI, it's even faster. So it's extremely difficult for organizations to kind of follow the pace and to have a structured AI. And we kind of, today, the data that we use, we are a bit in a wild west time frame where data is flying everywhere. We put it in different models, we analyze it, we send it, and we are losing the control of that. So it's how do we work as an organization to understand there is a very extremely fast-paced revolution, and how do we work as an organization, as individual, to try also to control that, because the end of the control is the data protection and the data privacy of our beneficiaries, and that is like core in our mandate, the way we work. And something I want to repeat, and I know is not. Most of you know it, but I think it's extremely important to understand when we use AI or no-code tools that are provided by American companies, they fall under what we call the Cloud Act. So the Cloud Act is a US law that was passed in 2018, and basically what these laws, this American law does is that the US can access the US government, my apologies, can access any data that is owned or stored by an American company. And what does it mean? That it means that if you work with Microsoft, or if you work with ChatGPT, OpenAI, or if you work with Notion, or if you work with any of these American tech companies, all your data can be accessed by the American government. Even like the head of Microsoft in France recognized in front of the Senate when asking, they say Microsoft cannot guarantee data sovereignty because all the data can be accessed by the American government. Which was maybe in 2018 era. I know some people have the reflection, they say, oh, maybe it's not a big issue. But imagine in today's world with the today's American administration and we're working, if you work in context where some of your beneficiaries might not be in agreement with the US government, and the US government might not be in agreement, might have an interest of getting the data of your beneficiaries. Imagine what does it mean. Imagine what it means today if as an organization you have, for example, data of Palestinians or data of people in Iran, in Syria, in Venezuela, all the countries that are where the US is part of the conflict. Imagine what it means giving all your data to one of the part of the conflict. And it changed a lot the way we work and the way we should apprehend data management in our world. And I put that in this presentation is something is well known, and sometimes it doesn't really make sense why some UN organization will use Microsoft knowing that the data is directly going to the US government. But it was a question with AI because today most of the big AI providers are US organizations. And you should really ask yourself the question because it's easy to send the data to the AI to get back a very nice dashboard of your data, analyze data. But you should ask yourself the question, is this data safe to be in the hand of the US government, in the today US administration? If it's okay, do it. Well, I use, for example, for code, Claude from Anthropic. just because I'm creating software and I don't care because there's no data, it's only software, and the data I put it after with other tools. That's perfectly fine, but you should be aware to ask yourself the question every time you use your data and the data of your beneficiaries going to a US organization, is it okay for it to be accessed by the government? If not, maybe I should not share this data with a US company. And this is not like this is a US law. You can check it on any Senate. And the last thing I wanted to touch on before giving the floor to Luna for the good news on AI, there are some good news, is Anthropic. And I wanted to highlight that for many years, you had this company like Anthropic. So for those who don't know Anthropic, Anthropic is developing Claude, which is today one of the most powerful AI large language model there is out there. You have like very few, Gemini from Google, ChatGPT from OpenAI, Claude from Anthropic, and a few others. But for many years, Anthropic was at least a company, I will say the only company that was really saying, no, we really want to have safety around our AI. We don't want our AI to be used, for example, for mass identification of people, like, for example, this company Accenture did in the US with ICE, or they were saying we don't want our AI to be used for autonomous weapons because we want to keep control. And because of the pressure in the US, largely imposed by the US government, Anthropic even dropped their pledge. So they were the last, I think, guys in AI, to put it this way, and that dropped their pledge. So now, even the AI is massively used in the US military for developing a new system and new means of war. So when you use AI for these companies, we have to be extremely aware of what is their stance on the risk of AI, the risk of data leak, and how they use the data. And it's extremely important because OpenAI, they always say, we don't care. I mean, Microsoft is the same. Microsoft is a big reseller of their AI capability to the Israeli army, for example, for what's going in Palestine. It's documented. But what it means today when we work with the system and what is, as a humanitarian worker, a mandate to work with them. The good news is, in Europe, we have some AI providers. In Germany, Proton is having a very good tool. In France, Mistral also is having a tool where they keep on having this AI developed with trying to limit the risk and control the risk, and also follow the EU regulations that are a bit more protective in terms of data and in terms of data protection, data privacy. But that I will let Luna speak a bit about it.
Thank you so much, Rafa. So yeah, I understand that maybe now you're a little bit confused because we started the presentation by telling you that AI was awesome, you could do so much faster, et cetera, and then we spent the rest of the presentation scaring you and trying to show you everything that is wrong with AI and what you should be careful about, right? I still think that nowadays we're just kind of trying to safeguard a little bit and to warn everyone about like the dangers of AI. However, we're definitely not telling humanitarian the sector to stay away from AI, because I also think that there is such a value in using it, and I think like we cannot keep on ignoring it, and especially with all the budget cuts and so on, like we need to get on the AI wagon to be able to do more with less, but it's just a matter of like how are we going to do it and how are we going to approach it in a way that is still safe, right? If you go to the next slide, so I want to kind of just give you like 4 basic use cases. We've kind of kept it very much broad so that hopefully you can all identify yourself in this. But like a typical example would be just like having your field data that you would, you know, like upload onto AI, and then you would just generate dashboards in minutes. So you would take everything that you have from like your Kobo toolbox data collection, and you know, you don't need developers anymore. You don't need Power BI anymore. You can just like have it all and make it like a lot quicker, I would say. Another one would be like automated reporting. So having like situational reports that are generated from the data, formatted, sent automatically. You can like send notifications maybe to relevant people based on like certain triggers, etc. So there's really a lot that can be done here. I think at the moment an example of that is the Gannett tool that was developed by DFS, right? They do situation reports. Then you have beneficiary-facing apps built with AI. So again, like, do you need a tool to help your beneficiary register themselves, and you need to assess whether or not they qualify for cash vouchers? This is like the perfect example of an application that before would take like months and months of development, and now can be like done so much quicker, so much faster. And then also connecting siloed tools. So right now you kind of still have like two ways of doing it. So either you would take all the tools that you have, right, and then you would like connect them all one by one. So you could use tools like N8N to do that. Or you could also just say, okay, we're going to scratch everything we have, and we're just going to create like one unified platform where all the kind of features that we use from different tools can be integrated into one, and you would like design it in the perfect way that you want, you know. But then, Rafa, if you could go to the next slide. What about, no, I think you went 2 slides, no? There was 1 slide before. Yeah. So with great power comes great responsibility. Yes, it's a quote from Spider-Man. So the framework is here, right, as we've mentioned. And it's just about making sure that in the initial step, even like when you're designing your AI-related project, you need to keep like all these things in mind so that you can make sure that you're kind of like safe from day one. So what should be done is obviously to keep humans in the loop. So making sure that humans still have like the final decision-making power. You know, the Klarna example, I think really applies everywhere. And there's really like no automation without any oversight, right? The second part is about inclusion. So we know that, you know, no one should be left behind. So the tools need to work for all of the users, whether that's offering like offline or low bandwidth capabilities, and then also local languages. Even in our work at Relief Application, we've seen it so many times where, for example, we design a chatbot or an application, and then it needs to be translated. And, you know, when making the proposal for the donors, etc., like someone forgot to include a line for like paying for translation. So we end up translating everything with AI, but we know that for a lot of those languages, AI doesn't perform well. So in the end, we end up releasing a chatbot without even being sure of like what the chatbot is saying, right? So it's really a shame. And then we also need to mention sustainability. So the point is to build tools that are going to last, not to demo. So we don't want to create new dependencies. You want to be able to own your tools as well. But then I think when we talk about sustainability, we also need to talk about environmental sustainability. This is obviously a big issue as well when it comes to climate change, energy use, et cetera, So I think like sometimes ask yourself also like, is it really worth the impact that it's going to have? Is it really going to like save me a lot of time and effort, or am I just jumping on the AI wagon because I want to? And last but not least, definitely next one, Rafa. Yeah. So I want to talk to you about data protection. So I know Rafa has already mentioned a lot about it, but please maybe like raise your hand if you've ever struggled to navigate data protection standards, struggled with compliance. So, you know, we're talking here about like GDPR and other types of standards, or maybe you just have no idea how to improve your data protection practices, or you just don't have the time or budget for it. So please, is this something that, you know, you can recognize in and you've struggled with? Don't be shy. All right. Well, hopefully a little bit more than 2 people. Yes, thank you, Ian. have kind of, faced this issue. And so we want to talk to you about an initiative that, and Rafa, if you could go now to the next slide, please, thank you. That an initiative that we have kind of envisioned at Relief Application, it's called Data Protection for Good, or DP4G. So the idea is that we've seen this issue happen a lot with our clients, where, most of the time they just put it as like a little line in their terms of references, for example, where they say, okay, like we need to have data protection standards. But then at the end, like no one in the team really knows or understands like what it means. And sometimes even like what is written in the TOR is kind of like conflicting with like the standards that exist, right? So what we've seen is that 86% of NGOs actually like cybersecurity plans. Meanwhile, there's been 241% increase in cyber attacks on humanitarian groups, unfortunately. And then the typical duration of manual compliance audit is like 3+ months. So most of the time it doesn't work even like in an emergency setting. And also like, hiring consultants for the audits and so on, it can get really costly. And at the same time, the data protection officers, like, even if they exist in your organization, right, like they don't have the visibility over like every single project, every single operation. So it's really hard for them to scale also these good practices, right? So this is a tool that is like a work in progress that we're developing at Relief Application, where it would go through 3 different steps. So the first one would be to, you would log in and like answer a bunch of questions, where it's like you would have a guided assessment that would be tailored to your project. You can also upload a lot of your project documents. And then based on that, you would get some AI guidance. So some personalized recommendation in plain language. So like, this is how you can improve your data protection measures and ensuring that your project is safer overall, right? And then last but not least, you would earn a certification. So this would be a little bit like an ISO certification where, it's like what's the word? Rafa, you say it all the time.
Self-certification? Sorry, I don't...
Auto-certification, exactly. And so you would then be able to like download that and then show it to your donors and your partners as a way to ensure that you're saying like, okay, this is exactly the measures and the different steps that we're taking to ensure that our data protection is following all these sets of standards, and that we're doing the best we can to ensure good practices, right? This is currently something that we're still looking for other organizations to help us like co-test, co-design. So if this is something that looks interesting for you, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We're definitely looking for people that are willing to test and help us kind of take this tool a little bit further. And if you go to the next slide, Rafa, this is my last and final slide. So these are just kind of like 3 things that you could do today. So kind of tying everything that we've discussed about during this whole presentation. So really open any like open AI tool, right? And then, so it could be ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever, and just describe a repetitive task that you do and see what solutions it proposes to fix it. Or just even like map all your pain points. So you would list like 3 different tasks where your team spends the most time on manual repetitive work. And again, like see what it proposes and kind of like what would be your options, right? And then, if you're like, oh, wow, like that sounds super interesting and super useful, but I still don't know where to go from here, like definitely feel free to come and talk to us. And we can help you make sure that like your pain points actually get turned into like a working tool that is still safe for you to use and well designed from the beginning, hopefully. And that's it. Now we're going to open the floor to different questions. So please don't be shy. Nothing is off topic. And yes, hoping to hear from you. No questions at all. Everything was clear. What do we do about Israeli intelligence? Rafa, I'll let you maybe take that one. Stealing and misusing data.
Yeah, it's a very good point. What you have to understand that most Israeli, at least the Israeli army, is working with Microsoft, and that's a known fact. Microsoft recognizes it, but also the Israeli, like for example in Iran and the US, are both allied against and sharing intelligence. For example, in the war in Iran. I don't know what you can do about Israeli intelligence, but what I know is if you share your data, if you put any data, for example, on Microsoft, it can be accessed by the American government. And if accessed by the American government, accessed by its allies, including the Israeli army. So I think this is something that you have to take into account when you use tools and when you choose tools in your work. Do I really want to use Microsoft? Do I really want to use Google? Do I really want to use OpenAI? When actually you have a lot of other options. I will post, for example, in France, you have Mistral, which is a French company. I can put it in the chat you want. That is also providing like a large language model. I will put it in the chat. You have also other options in Germany, in Sweden. So you have a lot of different options. So when you use AI tools or any actually software, just try to be mindful of where is the data hosted. What we know today is that if the data is hosted within the EU, you are better protected by the EU regulation. But if the data is hosted in the US, you are not protected at all because the US government can access the data. So this is what you should consider. The point is not to say don't use any US-based software. Is to say be careful of what data do you send to these softwares. That's basically the main message we want to pass today. Be careful of the data. Do you find that there's another question from Ian? Thanks a lot, Ian, for the question. Do you find that there are GDPR type issue with developing countries? And if so, which one? Okay, so that's a very vast question. So GDPR issues, I'm not sure GDPR is an issue because GDPR creates a protection tool for the people. So for beneficiaries, GDPR is actually a protection tool for them. In developing countries, many countries actually, the good point of the GDPR that it kind of launched a movement worldwide for government to create a data protection law. So I think, and to some extent, worldwide, this was a really good point of the GDPR that many governments realized, oh, we need a data protection law. Look what the EU is doing. Maybe we can do something similar with adapting to our local context. So, for example, California passed the HIPAA, which is just for California, protecting data protection in California. Kenya, South Africa, they have very strong data protection law. So that's the point when you work in every country is to look at what is the data protection framework and how can we comply with it. Because complying with data protection framework is also helping us protect our beneficiaries. And in the platform, we are trying to develop that Luna, like dp4g.org. This basically one of the points that we are trying to do is to look at different national disaster protection regulation and laws and try to help humanitarian workers to work with them, right? I hope I answered your question, Ian. Also, what you have to check very quickly is the scope. For example, the GDPR protects the data of any data that is within the EU, but also the data of anybody outside of any EU citizen outside of the EU. So very important when you think about migration and this kind of issues. Since AI application, and Fabrizio, thanks for the question, since AI application evolved so quickly, is there any website where each tool is rated? Something like, at the moment, XX tool, or Yes and no. Yes and no, because I think you have thousands of websites that trade tools, and it's difficult to have like a one main one to say this tool is better. Even with AI, it's difficult. You have a lot of research to try to benchmark AI, which is the best, and this is extremely difficult. What I know is that you have some website, for example, that will give you alternative to American-based website, and I'm trying to find one that I can send you. But it's difficult today to say, oh, there will be one website that will give you like the best ranking of the two, because it's a very subjective matters. And even every website is fighting to say, oh, every AI say, oh, my AI is better than that. And it's difficult, it's subjective. You have benchmark, but even the benchmark are discussed, and even in the scientific community, it's difficult to know which tool is better. Today, what we know, for example, quickly for code, when if you try to do vibe coding, today we know, my experience, that Claude is a bit better than ChatGPT was. ChatGPT is not really good. I like very much Mistral, the French AI. I use it a lot because of data privacy, extremely powerful to generate text. For images, for example, you have Gemini Banana that is really good, but it's evolving very quickly. So it's kind of trying to stay abreast, to try to look at reputable papers and websites, and but yeah, no, there is not one website that will give you all.
If anyone also has like a specific question related to, I don't know, like a project or some personal struggle that you've experienced in your organization, please don't hesitate. We have one more question from Ziri. Can anyone really vibe code, or do you still need some development IT skills?
It's a very good question. Actually, one of our designers asked me the question last week. So you can use AI right now to do more and more without being a developer. Even I think with Claude, you can even ask Claude to make a website and publish it directly on Claude, and then you will have a small link for this website. The truth is that when you vibe code, you have a lot of risks also. And if you are not a tech person, you might just end up doing like a basic mistake, like exposing your credentials on the web, or having like massive cybersecurity risk. So I will say, as of today, the world is changing so fast. Don't listen to this webinar in 2 years. But I would say that as of today, to develop a platform with web coding, you need to have some technical background. And also, and I will stress that in cybersecurity and data protection, data privacy, what we know, and actually this is documented by a lot of studies, experienced developer will get the most out of the support of AI, because they will recognize a pattern when you have mistakes. For example, even it happened to me like 1 month ago. I was developing in vibe coding a project management system for relief application, actually, because we realized it would be much faster and much tailored to our needs. And Claude, when push my code, but push my credentials on the web. So I did my work, I recognize that, so very quickly I just deleted my old credential, created new one, so it's perfectly safe. But you know, they make this kind of stupid mistake sometimes, so you have to be careful. So be careful if you are not an experienced tech person when you vibe code of where and what you do with your data.
Okay,
we have one question from Tom.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for the presentation. Really appreciated it. Super insightful. My question is about the ownership of the code. So if you are building some informatic code with AI, to who belongs the code? Because it's my case today. I've developed some tool on VBA, and now I don't really know, like, is it mine? Is it the one from the AI? Or I'm not sure about that. So yeah, if you have any insight about this. Thank you.
Yes, it will depend largely on which platform do you use, okay, to write code. What we do, for example, if you develop directly in your IDE, as any developer will do, the code can remain used because most of the code we do in JavaScript, TypeScript can remain used because the code will only generate. But you will see more and more platforms that will say, oh, we will generate a website for you and host it for you. And in this case, all the code belongs to this platform. So it really depends if you use AI tool to generate code on your code base, okay? So basically they will auto-complete your code, but your code remains yours. Or if you use this platform, when they say we'll develop a dashboard for you, we'll develop a website for you, and then host it for you, and then the code is theirs. So when you do so, it's extremely important to look at in this website who remains the owner of the code. Because now, for many years in IT, what we call vendor lock-in was an issue, but with AI is even more and more the case. I've seen even partners, we see partners coming to see us and say, oh, we developed this website very quickly, but we want to migrate it to another system because it's very expensive to host, or the license is becoming expensive, and then you cannot. So, and then you realize at this point that you are the owner of nothing. You are just here to pay the license. So you have to be extremely careful of that. But if you create like a code base, in that coding, you put it on GitHub or GitLab, then the code remains yours. So, but it's what you are pointing out, Tom, is extremely interesting because it's going to be a challenge in the next few years for organizations. Especially, I don't know if you allow me to loop in what I was saying on organizations struggling with the shadow IT, and you will end up having like code or data that actually from your organization, one of the organization user put it somewhere, and you realize the data is not yours anymore, or your code is not yours anymore, and then it can become a big issue for the organization. So it's important to check before if you can.
Do you have a follow-up, Tom? Otherwise, I'll take it. Okay. So Fabrizio, one more question. What is the best way to convince upper management who is overusing AI for literally every task that it's a really bad thing to do? Send them this presentation. No, I'll let you answer, Rafa.
No. It's an amazing question. And sometimes, and I think we saw that a lot in the private sector. I remember this study from MIT. The study was done August last year, so it's history. We are still speaking dinosaur in the AI world, but they realized that I have a memory gap, but I think that less than 10% of AI pilots were moved to production. What does it mean? That you had a big hype of management, upper management saying, oh, we need AI everywhere. And they were creating a lot of super nice pilots, shiny, but actually when they were giving it to the users, they were not really useful anymore. So today, I do believe, because we work in IT and this is our mission in Relief Application to try to bring innovation to humanitarian organizations, I do believe there are massive gains to be made in efficiency and to ultimately serve beneficiaries better. We see like the reduction in funding is incredible worldwide for humanitarian programs. But also when you look at what we give as humanitarian communities just to Microsoft or Amazon every month, you can serve quite a lot of emergencies. I've seen like invoices of millions of dollars for Salesforce for programs that do not work. Why, So what I think is there is a way also to rationalize the way we spend money and to direct more money to the beneficiaries and a bit less to our systems. Why do we pay all these licenses to these American companies, right? But at the same time, there are tremendous risks with AI. And that's why we have this data protection for good initiative, is to say AI is here and is here to stay. It's not going to change. So how do we do to use it in a responsible ways? Because not all people working AI are just tech giants trying to make money, right? Some are really good people. For example, I had the chance to study with Yann Lequin, one of the father of AI. And some people really want to do well, and we have a wonderful tool at our disposal. But how do we do that in a way that will respect and protect our beneficiaries. And I think this is the key of where we are. That's why, you know, it was very interesting when Luna asked, oh, is data protection is an issue for you? And very few people raise their hand. And I think I find it extremely interesting because sometimes we don't realize that this is one of the main risks today because the data is here to stay. And please, you need to understand that if you work in a refugee camp and you there is a case of abuse in a child and you don't manage the data well, this data will be forever somewhere. And this child will have his abuse data somewhere forever, stored, managed by AI. So you can harm beneficiary a lot with data. So is what I want to say, I think, not as a concluding word, but I think if you need to catch something for your management, say yes, use AI, but please work with people that maybe think a bit about it and try to put a lot of guardrails in it within your organization, and then create an environment, an innovation environment, integration that allow to test, allow to move forward, allow to be more efficient, but still protecting ourselves as users, but also our beneficiaries.
Next question from Delilah. I've previously had a hard time making a platform. My issue was that the AI would forget previous work or produce contradictory code. What do you suggest to ensure the full creation of a software's front and back end for someone with limited coding capacity? Wait a few years, a few months, maybe?
Come to us. No, you have I don't want to go too technical. For example, you have I was reading an article last week or somebody asking ChatGPT and Claude to compete and to improve the way they work. So the both agents were working. There is also, for example, one of our developers is extremely good at that, is to create an AI agent. So we will call one agent a tech architect, and this agent will turn by himself as a tech architect or QA specialist. You will create different agents to basically reduce the code and help us work. So to create AI agent to help you work on your code. Also, something very simple to do is to, because you seem to be a bit coding, in your project, you insert like, for example, if you work with Claude, a Claude.md file, and you give the instruction in plain language to this file. So every time the AI will code, it will check what is in this file and use that as a base instruction. So you have a lot of ways to do that. If you want, don't hesitate to contact me. I think you have my email in the presentation. I will put it in the chat, and I can give you
I put it already.
Okay, you are faster than me. So yes, you have different ways to do that. But if you are not an IT specialist, be extremely careful on how do you expose the data, because AI can code and create a lot of code, but sometimes exposing the data. And you need to really work on the security review of the code you create. And my apologies if I started to be a bit too technical.
Anyone has a last question? No problem, Delilah, happy to help. All right, so I guess if that's it, please, like I said, don't hesitate to reach out to us, even if it's just to ask like a simple question. I think we're always happy to help and kind of support, you know, the mission. Also about the initiative that we mentioned, the DP4G, Data Protection for Good. If you're interested to code test it, you think it could be something that your organization might be interested in, please also reach out to us. And then last but not least, we're going to have a booth at HNPW next week. So if you're there in person, please don't hesitate to come say hi. I'm going to be there. Rafa won't, because he's still going to be in Ecuador. But yeah, always happy to talk to people in person, as well, as we all work from home, and sometimes it's nice to see face-to-face people. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a very good day.
Thank you.